Since the institution of slavery, black youths have suffered from feelings of anguish, agony, and angst, experiencing barbaric abuse from slave masters, inhumane discrimination from Jim Crow laws, and merciless killings at the hands of police officers and other oppressors. Black youth suffer not only physically but mentally as well. And now, as the suicide rate for black adolescents rise, racial injustices continuously take place, and COVID-19 ravaged through the black community, one can't help but ask, how much more can the black youths of America endure?
My main reason for self harming, I feel like, was feeling unworthy. Like, um, I know I had issues with my father. I never had a good relationship with him. Um, it was always I felt like nothing I did was good enough for him. I just felt like I wasn't enough for him. You know, I'd get a grade and he'd be like, it could be better. Like say I'd get a 90, he'd be like, why didn't you get 100? You know, and he may have felt like that was pushing me, but it came off as nothing is good enough and I don't try hard enough, and it came off as rejection.
The racially motivated killings from spring 2020 has caused more than grief to the victims' families and the rest of the world. A change within the hearts of black youths began. A change that has caused fear and anxiety to arise in the bodies of America's black adolescents.
I've always been more vigilant and like more compressed and like quiet. Like I'm loud like when I'm in meetings like this one, or like I'm really talkative when I'm like in my newsletter meetings. That's the meeting I have at 2:15. I love those. But like I'm really talkative when I'm in those, really loud. I'm really like passionate, emotional, stuff like that. When I was in that ice cream shop, like they had to ask me to like speak up, because like I was so silent, because I was so scared of coming off as like the angry black man, like I was so scared of coming off like in a way that would be like a threat to them.
So our school in the beginning did not respond to the George Floyd attacks. Essentially, a whole year went past. A lot of students were placed into this hard, difficult time, especially being a young student of color and being surrounded by a predominantly white institution in an area of students with a lot of other white students. It kind of felt like an attack, and it also felt like disheartening and like discomforting that our school wouldn't bring awareness. And so our school is definitely comforting more of the white students' feelings. How can you sit there as a school district and call yourself a safe space for all students of all color, race, and sex, but sit there and follow these racial stigmas because you want to comfort a white student who doesn't feel comfortable with a student saying Black Lives Matter?
In the top corner, you see the North Star, and the North Star in this painting represents the hope that slaves had in plantations. When they looked up at the North Star, and they associated that with like freedom in the North. And I feel like this North Star still resonates in society now because it's the hope that us as Black people still have for the government to get better and for things to start changing in society. And so this girl right here, she has hands covering her face, and those hands are like Caucasian hands. You know, they're white because like they have like the sleeve of like the colors of the American flag on them. That kind of represents like Uncle Sam and like how we're still in modern bondage. Like right here we have like a black man tied up in handcuffs, and then we have a slave like we have a slave right here. He has handcuffs on as well. So it just represents like the modern chains. This mask, it represents the modern chains that we have on us, especially because of COVID.
As COVID-19 began to severely attack the health of Americans, black communities were hit the hardest. The lives of elders and parents of many black adolescents were lost as a result, and remote learning became an addition to an already prejudiced education system. Thus, The mental health of America's black adolescents continues to plummet as a result.
The only place my mom would go during the time was work and home. And we know for a fact that she contracted it at work. One of her coworkers came in and was sniffling and coughing, and we're like, well, she was like, hey, like, you sound like you're sick. I think you should like take time off. And she's like, no, it's just allergies. And a couple days later, my mom's in the hospital. My mom and I live by ourselves. We live in a house on our own. With her having asthma, they took her to the hospital, and I was pretty much home alone. But it just felt lonely being just sick and having to basically doctor myself and care for myself. With COVID being something that one of the symptoms being shortness of breath, it's like, is my mom gonna make it?
My mental health plummeted. It was non-existent. It was terrible because we were still finding news about coronavirus and how many lives of Americans it's been taking, and also just not being in school and sitting on a computer all day and not being present and socially and just seeing all the things and injustices happen around the world and not being able to go out and do it because of the virus, and then my mental health go out the window. It was to a point where I didn't even feel comfortable logging on or showing my face because I just looked so unkept and I was just so unmotivated by everything going on in the world at the time. It just really had a very detrimental effect on me as a whole.
And now, as racial injustices, including police brutality, continuously take place, COVID-19 vaccinations are unproportionately distributed, and schools constantly disregard students. The suicide rate of African American adolescents soar, and mental health declines. The suffering that continues to be ignored. Who will hear their cries? Who will save their lives?